While we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again, they face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but because they were born to honor the thin blue line. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Ziegler.
Hey everybody, it's Michael Ziegler, your host of the LEO First Podcast, and we're coming back to you for another amazing episode. It is fairly early in the morning. I was telling our guests that I used to be an early morning riser, but as I've shifted to more remote work, I find myself waking up closer to 6:30 to 7 versus 4:30. However, I wanted to make sure that I was ready for this podcast, so I actually woke up 30 minutes earlier. And it worked because I was very energetic, and I have been for the last hour and 11 minutes. I know by the time I release this, it's going to be well past that time. But it's always amazing when you can wake up to a refreshing personality, a person that has continuously built their career in law enforcement, but also is striving to make it better. And the guest today is that person that meets that profile completely. Our guest has nearly 35 years in law enforcement. Yes, for my younger viewers, I know you may not even be 35, but this person hits 35 years in May of 2025 in law enforcement. So whatever you were thinking, he has seen a lot. He actually started in my home state, which is Florida, at the Osceola Sheriff's Office. He did that for nearly 26 years. And then, which I know you're going to say, how did he get from A to B? He went from Florida all the way to North Dakota. Yes, North Dakota, folks. If you have to go look it up on the map, I've done it in the past. Please go do it. But now he's actually a chief of police and has been a chief of police since 2016 in Mandan. So it's cool to have someone on here that has a lot of experience, and then someone that's been in technically multiple states. He's also a Marine, a veteran. So he's had time in that boat as well. So all my veterans, I know you're going to relate to that. Now, I'm not a veteran, but I know there's always this dynamic between the different groups. So I'm sorry for my Army folks, my Navy folks, my Air Force folks, my National Guard folks, but we do have a Marine on. And I know the Marines that are on here probably if I had this live, we'll have thumbs up or something like that. But he has had a lot of experience in the industry. He's been around a long time, really contributing. Even now, he's the president of the North Dakota Chiefs Association, where I didn't meet him in person when I was in South Dakota back in April. And the genuineness that I haven't met in person is something that's been so amazing. And we actually been talking in our pre-show for nearly 30 minutes, just kind of talking about life and different situations. So I know what you guys are going to hear from him today it's going to be extremely refreshing, and it's going to allow you to learn another person that's in our industry doing a great job. Now, I have opened up this, and I know I didn't tell you guys a lot about him, but today our guest is Jason Ziegler. Now, I know it's spelled, the E is silent, guys, so when you see it, do not put that E in there. And me and him actually said it's like Zig Ziglar. I don't know if you all know, but I am an extremely big fan of Zig Ziglar. So as soon as he said that, I was like, that's an easy way to pronounce it. So, Jason, thank you for being on today. Thank you for motivating me to get up. And tell us, what do you want us to know that you have going on right now?
Well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate you having me on. I always look for opportunities to come and talk to anybody that wants to listen to what makes our profession great. And what makes our profession great is the people in it. And if there's one thing that I could say that I would really like to focus on is the people in our profession. What is it that makes somebody stay in our profession for as long as we do? It is really, and this is just, being a Christian, this is one of my true beliefs. It is a calling from God. We just don't jump into this profession saying, I just need a job. Some people do try to get into it as a job and they never make it as a career. But there's a shift. There's a huge shift right now in our profession where we're looking for career-oriented people. And I think that's huge. And we've got to always, part of that level too is the health and wellness and remember that these are people behind the badges. And I mean, it is truly, and I can't say this enough, Michael, I appreciate you asking me to do this podcast, because it's been something on my mind for since you asked me, okay, what is it going to be like and how are we going to go and what direction is this going to spin? But I'm here to answer questions and to have a good conversation with you.
So, okay. So I love that you talked about generations, because one of the things that I really been touching on lately is retention. Obviously, people know I'm all in mental wellness, and I'm all about, taking care of yourself, no matter if you're an officer, you're a lieutenant, you're a sergeant, you're a chief, whatever level you're at, you got to take care of yourself. But there's another component that drove me to even starting to even think about that. And that's the mindset of the officers, like law enforcement officers, no matter, like I said, take away the title. The fact that since 2020, we've been on a very extreme downwards spiral with our retention.
Yeah.
And obviously, as a chief of police since 2016, I'm sure you were affected as well. And being in a chiefs association, you're going to probably feel it from your other brothers and sisters that are part of the group. What have you seen in 35 years? Actually, you know what? I know what you've probably seen. Let me flip that question around. What do you think it's going to take to bring people back to law enforcement and to help build our image?
Well, I think one of the most important things is the commitment, not just looking at it as a job, but looking at it as a profession. And, I kind of always just go back to the basis of, Sir Robert Peel, and his 9 principles. When he talks about all those 9 principles, he's really the nut and shell of it is that the people are the police and the police are the people. And we've kind of gotten away from that for so many years. And there was a stigmatism that attached itself that if the police show up, don't talk to them or don't do this. The police are the bad guys. And we have to change our image. Recruiting and retaining. And in fact, we actually, in my agency, we changed the way that we're recruiting now. Instead of looking for that alpha cop, that best cop out there, we're going for people that are not certified law enforcement that we can send to the academy. We're looking for good people that we think that we can turn into good cops. Because if you don't get good people in your agency, you shift the culture of your agency. And what happens is that stigma attaches it, and then you have people working together that don't like each other. And that becomes very difficult to manage. I always tell people, I said, one of the toughest things about being a chief isn't managing people. I can tell people, this is your patrol squad. This is where you're going to go. I want you to go out and handle these calls. What's difficult is managing personalities. When you get personalities in the same room and you're trying to get them to work together, and just by nature, they don't like each other, that is a true challenge. And you don't have the luxury in law enforcement just to bounce people from squad to squad to squad until you find a squad for them to fit on. They have to naturally start to develop a relationship on their squad themselves. And if they can't do that, that not only affects your squad health, it also it affects your agency health, because it's a ripple effect, and there's always that one person that you hear this throughout my career. I've heard this is you transfer your problems. Well, you can't do that, because transferring a problem, then what it does, it's like that dropping that pebble in a water where it ripples outwards. Now that one person that is affected, that one squad now is affecting another squad, which could affect another squad, and people start moving around. So it's really kind of cancerous. So unfortunately, what we have to do in law enforcement, when we find those people, we have to kind of show them a way to another profession, because they don't work. And where it really gets complicated is when it starts to affect your community. Because if it starts to affect your community, then it affects your the people who hired you, your city commission, which then affects you as a chief globally when you're trying to do your job.
Man, Jason, you said so many things that I want to touch on, but I'm trying to scale it back, because now you have like that hamster in my mind just spinning quickly. You talked about alphas, hiring alphas. You talked about culture. talked about dealing with just the public, because if you don't have the right person in the right squad that's right for your agency, where it can lead to. So, gosh, I'm usually not stumped for questions. I'm not going to be, but I'm trying to figure out what angle I want to take, because it's so amazing when you hear like macro level thinking. And I think at the executive level, a lot of people don't realize that that's how you have to think. You have to think, okay, what's going to impact everything, not just your one unit or your one squad, but even what's impacting the whole agency and the whole city, because all that takes effect at your level. Because as an executive, you always have to be thinking about, okay, what else is this going to impact? As an officer, you might just be thinking, okay, what's right in front of me? And I know we talked about that a little bit before, about just how to look at it different angles. So for you, 35 years in law enforcement now, I like the fact that you rather cultivate the officer from the ground up versus bring somebody in. Like, how have you, and law enforcement is very big on incentives right now, especially recruitment incentives. How have you seen your agency shift culturally since you find yourself focusing more on like that officer for the ground up versus just bringing in all these alphas from different agencies?
Well, the one thing that I've noticed is that we're building a culture of loyalty. Because if I hire somebody from another agency that's bounced from 2 or 3 different agencies, in my mind, I automatically go, well, they've not been loyal to their first 2 agencies. What's going to make them loyal to my agency? And so when you're trying to really look at long term, like, because law enforcement's a marathon, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Every day builds your career. And so I always tell young officers when I meet with them for the first time, don't try to live your career in one day. You'll drive yourself nuts. Building a career, it's a marathon. It takes time to get there. So I've approached the recruiting aspect the same way. Is you've got to give them an incentive to stay. And what better incentive is that this is the agency that hired you, that trusted you to come in to be that keeper of your community,
right,
and build them from the base. And I've got a very strict guideline. I won't hire anybody under 21 either, because I think people have to get life experience. And what I'm finding since I did that is most of the people who apply are former corrections officers. They're coming from the state penitentiaries and stuff like that. So they have that life experience where they know how to deal with life around them. And you bring that in, then you train them to be cops. Because you've got a book in front of you. Because when you're doing a background, the worst background you can get is when you open it up and there's nothing. So there's nothing there for you to say, okay, well, this guy or gal is going to be good. Mm-hmm. So I like people that have a little bit of their life book written, to where we can actually look at them and say, yeah, this is going to be a good fit for us. This is a good person. And we know that they're going to be capable of dealing with what's in front of them in a marathon career of law enforcement. And we're about 80% on our recruiting and retention doing that. So nothing's perfect. And that's the other thing, as a chief or a sheriff, just remember, nothing's perfect. And the worst thing that you can do, and I tell this to my staff, is I need to tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear. Because if I want to hear that everything's going good in my agency and you tell me that, then I don't know what really is going on. So tell me what I need to hear. The old group think. Don't just pat me on the back and say, Chief, you're doing the greatest job ever. That doesn't work.
It doesn't.
You have to have a staff, and I've got, and this is just my opinion, one of the best command staffs. My deputy chief is awesome. I mean, because he'll come in and just be very blunt with me and ask me, what the heck was I thinking? There's certain things that you just really need from your command staff as a chief or a sheriff, and that's people to be honest with you. Don't, and I always tell people too that if you tell me something and I get upset, give me a few minutes to think about it, because usually the natural reaction when you think you're going in the right direction and then you hear that you're not, you're going to be upset about it and you might get a little agitated. take a step back, take a breath, maybe wait a day, and then come in and say, okay, yes, I'm sticking with my decision, or I can't. Now, of course, there's not always those decisions that you can set back and take a day to make. Some decisions need to be made right away. But if you've got a minute to think about it, if it upsets you about what you're hearing, and you're hearing what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, there's some truth in that. Maybe what you're doing is not the right thing. Maybe you need to recalculate your brain and say, okay, I need to think this a different way. And that's why you have to build a great command staff around you as a chief. And I'll tell you this right now, Michael, what makes me a good chief, and I don't know if I'm a good chief. I hear people saying things. I'd like to think that I am, but I don't know. Nobody knows what the backroom talk is. Yeah, but what makes me, when the community says, Chief, you're doing a good job, the one thing I always say is, no, my officers, the men and women out there on the street are doing a good job, because if they're not doing a good job, then that makes my job 10 times more difficult. If they're out there messing up our city, I get blamed. That the buck stops with the chief. It stops with the sheriff. So we're always accountable. We're that leader at the top that when it comes down to it, we own whatever happens in the city.
And that's true. But it's cool because you're taking ownership. I mean, as a chief, it's a given. You're going to do that anyways. But and I know in 8 years of being a chief of police for you, obviously not everybody has the same level of longevity, but obviously a system that you're using must be working, because I don't know if everybody always knows, but maybe if you're not at the executive level, chief is more of an appointed position versus an elected one. So technically the city manager, I don't know if you guys sign contracts, but technically the city manager can definitely, or commissioner can definitely come in and say, you know what, you're not going to be here in 2025. So obviously you're doing something right. So don't switch that up. Sheriffs a little different. They get 4 years to do it right or do it wrong. Like they not all of them last every term. And I like I said, I was at the Sheriff's Association earlier this month, and I had someone that said that they didn't win their campaign. So I know it's not guaranteed. So with this new cultural aspect of, and I wrote it down because you said it right out the gate. You're creating a culture of loyalty. And to me, when I talk about retention, I always tell people, I'd rather talk about the retention side versus the recruitment side. Meaning, and this is just meaning in this area, I'd rather develop the people I have than keep bringing in new people. Now that's different from the academy, because you gotta have that. But I don't know if I always want an officer that's 5 to 10 years or 15 years and they're running away from something, or just coming to me because I'm giving a $5,000 incentive. Because if they're coming to me for that, who knows if they're going to stay, or they're going to see another $10,000 incentive next year, or whatever their obligation is. So I rather, what can I do to show people, if you come here, like to Mandan, for example, I'm going to do everything I can to give you everything, not just what you need, but what you want. Meaning, like, if you want additional training, or you want to see if you want to explore different units, like, I'm going to do my best to create that for you, rather bringing the person from the street, or excuse me, from another agency. And just because they have 6 years in, they're going to get everything that you should have gotten or could have gotten because you earned it. So it's cool that you're developing that. Like, how do you think that translates to like family life when it comes to like just building in the loyalty within versus always trying to seek outwards?
Well, I do something with all of my new officers. Of course, I swear them in my office just to get them out there on the street and get them, starting the training. But as soon as I, get a group of them together, and it's usually about 3 or 4 months, I have a badge pinning ceremony, and I invite the families, and we have cake and punch. And I swear them in, and I let one of their loved ones pin the badge on them. And what I tell them there is that they are now not just the officer, but their family is now part of our family. Mm-hmm. We just got done with our 7th annual grill with a cop, and the family members come out and help serve the community. And it's a public feed. It's a free feed. We feed right around anywhere from 800 to 1,000 people every single year at our one of our biggest parks in the city. And we get a bunch of local donations and stuff like that for it. So the best way you can do that is make the officer's family part of your police department family. when Christmas comes around, I got one of my lieutenants that dresses up like Santa, and we bring the kids in, and we set we give them all a gift. So and then we do a little get together for the officers. Yesterday we just had my administrative assistant. She put together this little get together for the office staff, and so my wife and I, we go there and we sit down, we talk to them. We humanize each other. We don't just look at, okay, well, we're coming to work today, and today I'm going to see my office staff and I'll say hi to them, and then I'll go home and I won't think about them until I come in tomorrow. You got to eliminate that. You got to make them part of your family. And one of the hardest things that most departments go through is dealing with the civilians with inside your agency. They're some of the most valuable people, like our record techs. They make sure that our records that are going out to the public are redacted and all this other stuff. And a lot of us take it for granted that, because they're part of our agency, and we had turnover in there, and we got to recruit the right people for the civilian positions too. So, we got to make sure that everybody is part of the family, and part of that family is their family. Because if you bring somebody in and you not worried about who their spouse is or who their kids are or anything like that. I learned this from my former sheriff that I used to work for down in Florida. He would always know things about people, and I always scratch my head how he knew everybody's name. But somebody has to let you know, okay, this is Officer Jones's birthday, and say happy birthday. Or I've done this. I've been out and I hear that it's somebody's birthday, and I go up and say, hey, let me take you to lunch today, and I take them to lunch. Or if they're already out, and I see some officers eating, you can, why not buy their lunch? There's the little things that you can do. Really makes a difference with creating that positive culture, and including their family is huge. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but that's where my brain took me, Michael.
No, that's good. No, you did. No, Jason, that was perfect, man. No, and I tell people like it's the small things that make a difference in your culture. Like there's no, and I know we talked about my book, Greatness Beyond the Badge, before the show started. And I've had several people say, man, your book's real simple. Like it's not. And I said, God, why do we need to overthink this process of life? Like if somebody has a family member, if you want them to be engaged in your agency, you need to get that family member involved somehow. Because when that person goes home, if they're not involved with their family at some point, I don't know if it's going to be 6 months in or 20 years in, things that they have going on is going to crumble around them. It's just life. So I have so many officers that think that, especially newer officers, or people not even officers, they might even be a sergeant or in leadership role, that they have to exclude their family. But when you exclude them, you're literally holding back a part of you. And I think that when you're not bringing them into whatever you're doing, whatever that might be, even law enforcement, where we see a lot of crazy things that happen, you're literally keeping them from a part of you that makes you who you are. So, Jason, the fact that you're having all these events and you're trying to figure out how to honor your staff, I think that's part of that commitment to loyalty, like you mentioned earlier. And the fact that you're doing it, I think, for any executive personnel or any executive officer that's on here right now, if you're not doing it, or if you're not doing it enough, get the families involved. However that might be. Obviously, there's policies and you can't take them everywhere, but have those cookouts, have those birthday celebrations, or even if it's a phone call, like whatever you do, that family member, if you're supportive of them, when that officer is coming home on a bad day, they're going to be supportive of you. That family member's like, hey, you know what? Don't, because I've had several family members in the past that if they didn't like where I was working, they would be the one pushing it harder than I would. Hey, you need to leave, you need to transfer. Or you'll hear like a spouse come talk to me from another person say, man, I hate this place. So if they're saying they hate the place, what do you think they're telling that officer? So now that officer is combating not just themselves when it comes to staying, but now their family. So Jason, I think that's good. I think that helps out a lot of retention. So once again, any executive that's listening, just figure out how to get the family involved that suits your agency, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself battling against that. So with all that said, Jason, if somebody's looking for you, I know you're not big on social media, how would they find you?
Well, probably the easiest way, if they drop me a message in LinkedIn, I do respond to those occasionally. you can call the Mandan Police Department, go to our website. It's one of those things. I'm not too much of a social media person, so I kind of ignore it. I know
Fair
I
enough.
shouldn't, but
Yeah.
I've got some good people here at the police department that do monitor our social media and stuff like that. So if there's a message on the Mandan Police Department Facebook, um, my administrative captain likes to watch that stuff a lot, so he would probably get it to me. So, but yeah, no, I'm pretty simple. You call the police department or you message the Mandan Police Department's Facebook, and somebody will get me the message.
Yeah, and you don't have to have a lot of places as long as you have at least one, because people can,
Yeah.
like you said, obviously they can watch the show. If they really want to reach out, they can reach out to me and I know how to find you. But people always want to overcomplicate things. Even if it's like, so I had Captain Corey Flowers on. He's out of Greensboro, North Carolina, and he was in the same boat. He was like, Mike, he said, the only thing I do is LinkedIn. He said, I don't do Facebook, I don't do Instagram, I don't do TikTok, I don't do nothing else. He said, because but I told him sometimes the simplest way is like, for me, since I do everything, I have to keep up with all these different platforms. So sometimes I get lost in my responses. So the fact that you don't have anything, it's helpful. Plus, once again, we talk about loyalty, which has been a big part of today's show. And you have good people around you that's covering that. And the fact that you have this family environment in Mandan, your people are taking care of you. So it's all part of the give or take, folks. Like, you don't have to do it on your own, especially you don't want to do it on your own as a chief or a sheriff or a warden. You want to be able to use the people around you. So, Jason, any final words?
The biggest thing, my final words is just remember, you only know what you know, and you can't do everything. You got to have good people around you that can support you and lift you up, even at the lowest times. If it wasn't for my command staff and the fine men and women of my department, I'd be nothing. I'd just be another human being walking this earth. So pay attention to the little things, and always give credit where credit's due. When those people are out there, your officers out there doing a fine job on the street, thank them for it. Sometimes that little thank you is enough to get them through the rest of the day. So yeah, just be true to yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I'm not perfect. I live in a flawed world, and I will do the best I can today, and I will let others help me be better. And I mean, that's my final words there, Michael.
You don't have to have Kobe. So I was listening to something by Eric Thomas. He coins himself as the hip hop preacher. He's based out of Detroit. And one of the things he said, and this was I was on the treadmill a couple of days ago. He was like, all his success in life has been through the help of others, meaning that
Absolutely.
he hasn't been able to achieve anything on his own. And he said he always laughs when he hears people say, oh, I've done this or I've done that, or it's been all me. And we all know that's not truthful, but it's good, especially in a final word setting, that you say, hey, you don't have to do it all on your own. Whatever it might be, whether it's creating team environments, whether it's leading people, and I know we didn't talk about a lot on this episode, even if it's your own mental wellness, you don't have to be by yourself. Like, there's people out there in every single walk of life that want to help. And you would be surprised how many people are just waiting at the doorstep, like, hey, you open the door, I'm gonna come in and help you. So those are really good final words. Like, it's one of those things that we think we have to overthink, but you don't. You just have to go with it. You have to say, okay, I have this project, whatever you want to call it, this said project. I need help. Okay, it's fine. It's not taken away from your credibility. It's not taken away from your alpha-ness. It's just saying, I want to be more efficient in what I'm doing. So let me find somebody that knows how to do it. Or, like you said, let's say social media, someone that has more time to do it, or someone that specializes in this. Because I could tell you, all the people I've met in my 39 years, I'm sure you met in your 35 years in law enforcement, not one person is good at everything.
Nope.
And there's a reason that they hire people to do things. Like, unless you're living off the land, which many of us are not, you need help from somebody somewhere. I mean, and no matter how you look at it, you're like, hey, either someone has to make clothes for you, they have to go kill the food for you. Even if we want to go back to the simple primal lifestyle, like, unless you're literally living off the land, you need help. So you take that theory and you build that culture, and you allow yourself to grow all those around you. So, Jason, I thank you for the time. You were great. Folks, if you're looking for him, Facebook would probably be the best, or just call the police department in Mandan, North Dakota, and I think they could definitely lead you to them. But it's always exciting to start the day off with a good podcast. And obviously, I'm telling people so they can listen to this as well. It's always good to start your day off, but for me as well, it's always fulfilling to see people in every state, every part of the country, different parts of the world, really growing the people, because our law enforcement profession is great. It's a calling, it's a commitment, and when I see leaders taking the step forward continuously to promote it and keep people and grow, that's important, because there's a lot of negativity that's always surrounds our industry. It always has. It's not like it just started, but we have to kind of control that. And one of the best ways is just treat your people right. And those same people that you treat right will be your spokesperson. They will be the person that elevates and talks highly about your agency. And I've seen it. I've seen it going both ways, guys. I've seen some people have a bad day and just hate the agency. I've seen people have a good day. So you just want to make sure that your voices are always louder on the positive side, especially if you really like your place. If you don't, go work somewhere else. Trust me, there's an agency hiring. But I know, based on what I can tell with Jason and Mandan, if you work in a place like his, you're more than likely going to enjoy it. Now, I will say this is my one con, is that it's cold in North Dakota. So I live in Texas. I'm from Florida. And that would be my one stressor. But I know a lot of people that love the cold weather. So I can tell you, if you like the cold weather, that part of North Dakota would be the one for you. Not for Michael Laitler, because like even today, I'm in a t-shirt and some shorts, and I hope to stay in this kind of attire till at least November. In North Dakota, you probably have to start putting on at least pants and a jacket starting this month, if not September. But needless to say, I know it's cold. Oh,
I think you got a little bit of a skewed vision of North Dakota. Actually, we were in the 90s yesterday. Our change of season starts late October. So there's people that wear shorts and stuff all the way up until, late October. Even sometimes bleeding into November. But wow. And the white stuff can snow. It can snow anywhere from, the late October, and then sometimes we get snow in May, but it's very rare that it happens. And if it does, it's only here for one day. It's a wet snow, and then it warms up into the 60s and stuff like that. So
my view is definitely skewed. I watch a lot of TV. No, I actually don't watch.
Yeah, there you go. I tell you what, Michael, you're welcome to come.
North Dakota sounds cold, but I understand.
I tell you what, come up here in November. just come up here. You'll be pleasantly surprised.
Okay. That's fair. I'll take that challenge. I did think about traveling somewhere else in November too. So I will bring a jacket just in case. I don't want to be caught off guard.
I didn't say you didn't need a jacket, because it'll probably be around that 40, 50 degrees. And
that's not bad.
That Texas blood of yours, it'll definitely be a little bit chilly, but you'll see people up there walking around in shorts and short sleeve shirts in November.
40s and 50s are not that bad. I can accept that. Like, that's not that bad. I mean, I won't be in shorts, but that's at least a hoodie, a jacket kind of material. So
then at night it gets cold, just like any other place. You can get down to the 30s and stuff like that. But yeah, it gets really cold. Our coldest months are January and February.
And I believe that. So once again, guys, if you're thinking about not freezing, don't go down there January, February, but every other month. The other 10 are pretty solid. So guys, thank you for showing. And I know you're like, man, I thought Michael was going to end. I probably, my viewers are just like, usually you get close to ending, but I get on a tangent. And once again, since we're unscripted, sometimes these conversations just happen. But once again, guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. If you need anything, reach out. If not, enjoy your day and be safe.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge: The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laitler. On Twitter at Michael A. Laidler. On Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaellaidler.com and hit the website at michaellaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.
Modernizing.